Hi, I'm Mike, and I'm here for Bush Class USA, and this is the student practice for tree identification. I'm here today to find 5 trees that are good for bushcraft, and they're some of my favorites, and so I want to share those trees with you, and just seemed like a good day to get out in the woods. So let's go do some exploring. One of the books that I use for tree identification here in Minnesota is a book written by Stan Tequila called Trees in Minnesota Field Guide. And it's a very excellent book for all the coniferous and deciduous trees that we have here in Minnesota. And we're going to use it today to identify some of my favorites. So stay with me. Hi. Here we have one of the trees behind me that are one of my favorites for bushcraft. It is the eastern red cedar, or its scientific name is Juniperus virginiana. I hope I got that right, but anyway, it has a lot of great qualities for bushcraft, and let's explore some of those right now. All right, one of the identifying properties of the tree are, of course, its leaves, and in this case, they are kind of a needle-like quality on some of the new growth. I'm not sure if you can see that very well, but there's also kind of a scaly type of needle as well, or leaf as well, and that identifies it as an evergreen. As you can see, this time of year we do have some greenery on the tree. It is a coniferous tree, a softwood variety. The wood is fairly easy to carve. The eastern red cedar produces also kind of a more scaly kind of leaf at other times of the year, accompanied by some blue berries that are usually toxic and should not be eaten. I've heard some people have tried, but I don't know of the effects. The other distinguishing characteristic is the bark. The bark itself is kind of a reddish brown and thin, and it peels off in long vertical shred-like strips. And as you can kind of see some of that right here on this tree. And it has many good uses for bushcraft. So that's how the tree is identified. Okay, one of the uses of the eastern red cedar, of course, is for cordage. I liked this location because it shows below the base of the tree some of the root structure. And as you can see, these very large root structures coming out of the base of the tree and are flowing down and around the sandstone and these rocks. But more importantly, exposed right here is some of the finer stuff, and this makes great cordage. Cordage from the eastern red cedar is very flexible, very strong, and a good resource for bushcraft. Okay, one of the uses of the eastern red cedar is for making tinder. You can take the long reddish brown pieces of bark and shred them up to make a very fine kind of a bird's nest bundle of natural tinder that will take a spark from a ferro rod fairly easily. The boughs of the tree itself can be used for bedding. Other purpose is many people will put them on a fire to produce smoke. This helps to control flying insects. And I think it's also been used for drying, or in the process of drying meat, to give it kind of a smoky flavor that I guess enhances the meat when you're making jerky. I've used it for making some tools like this digging stick. This piece has a pretty good hardness to it, so I've used it as a baton as well, and all around just a good piece to have on hand. Multiple uses for the eastern red cedar. Hi. Another one of my favorite bushcraft trees is the white or paper birch. Betula papayifera is the scientific name, and let's take a look at some of its identifying qualities. The white or paper birch is a deciduous tree with a simple leaf that alternates on the stem. The length of each leaf is about 2 to 3 inches. It is oval or heart-shaped and pointed and rounded at the base. It is irregularly toothed and becomes thick and leathery in texture and dull on the upper side and kind of yellowish green on the lower side, and turns to a light yellow in the autumn. It is a little difficult to see some of the leaf structure here in the winter time, but take a look at this picture and it'll give you a better idea as to what the leaf looks like on the paper birch. The bark of the tree is thin and papery, and you can see it peels off of the tree here fairly easily. As the tree ages, the bark becomes even more white, and there are certain kinds of pores and imperfections that are quite evident in the bark. There are many uses of the birch tree for bushcraft. One, of course, is the bark. It tends to roll up. These are from a much older tree. The bark itself has a resin in it that when lit tends to burn for a very long time, and with almost a smoky black kind of smoke rising from the bark. And so you know that that resin is burning when you're using birch bark as tinder. One of the other things that I've used it for is for making utensils. Here's a spoon that I've made, carved out of a piece of birch, and has served me quite well. In fact, I used it today because I forgot to bring a metal utensil. So, and of course, many people have heard of birch bark canoes. One of the uses, of course, in the spring of the year, one of the things that I've done is tap the tree for some of its sap, as you can see in this picture. You can also make containers out of the paper itself. I've even used it to write simple notes and keep when I have been out of paper. So there are many uses for birch in materials for building furniture, and it's just a really great tree for a lot of resources. But I liked it for the tinder and for the wooden utensils, and of course for just how pretty it looks in the fall. All right, let's move on to the next tree. The tree that I have behind me here is the black walnut. The scientific name is Jungles nigra, and one of its distinguishing features for identification are the fruit nuts that are usually found on the ground around the tree. And during the summer months, these are growing within the leaf clusters. They're usually a yellowish green in color, and very distinguishable as they hang on the leaf. The leaf is generally 12 to 24 inches in size and looks something like this picture right here. One of the uses of the black walnut for bushcraft is the nuts. The outside has a husk that during the summer and late fall is somewhat liquidy, and the liquid will actually stain your fingers. You could use it to stain leather, stain wood. The husk can be boiled down along with the hulls in order to make a black walnut stain. So that's a good material. The nuts themselves can be crushed and used as an abrasive for polishing and sanding and finishing. And then, of course, the nut meats inside are nice and edible and a very sweet treat when you're out on the trail and you need some quick energy. So many uses for the black walnut, with its hard wood for making tools, and for its nuts for sustenance. All right, let's move on to the next tree. One of my all-time favorite trees is the American basswood or American linden, also known with a scientific name, Tilia americana. The basswood tree has multiple bushcraft uses, but let's get to the identifying features first. One of the things, of course, is its leaf structure. It can be anywhere from 3 to 6 inches. It's almost as tall as it is wide, and it's relatively heart-shaped. Take a look at this picture, and you'll have a better idea as to what it looks like during the summer. The American basswood or American linden tree is a deciduous tree, and it's considered one of the soft hardwoods, and it carves very easily. The bark on the tree itself runs quite vertically and very narrow, and is easily to identify on the more mature trees, and on the younger branches and stalks and everything, it's a very smooth texture on the outside. And this smoothness, this tone of this bark, gives it some very interesting properties for bushcraft. For bushcraft, there are multiple uses with the basswood. One of the things that I really like about it, it's a great trail snack. The leaves themselves are actually edible. The very small brassy ones, the more immature leaves, can be eaten just about any time of the year. The bark itself, especially for the younger stalks, when you harvest them, the bark can be stripped off and used for cordage. Very, very smooth, very, very few imperfections, very long strands of bark. The inner bark also makes a very good strong cordage. And one of the other greatest uses is, of course, the wood inside. Makes great cups and bowls, and of course spoons. Just like using the birch, you can make a spoon with it, and there's no taste to it, so or little to no taste, so it's not going to affect the flavor of your food, and I like it for that reason. So that is the American basswood, one of my favorite all-time bushcraft trees, and I hope you get a chance to use some of it sometime. Multiple uses, probably more than I can cover in this video. This next tree is called the Cottonwood, and it is one of my most favorite trees for bushcraft. It's easy to identify because of its size, its type of bark, and the type of leaf that it has. Its scientific name is Populus deltoides, and the reason it's called deltoides is because of the shape of the leaf. Here's one laying on the ground. Here you can see it's roughly triangular in shape, and has some teeth on it, and they can get much larger than this. Take a look at this picture to get an idea of what they look like during the summertime. Okay, now that you've seen what the leaf looks like, let's take a look at the bark. There's a very rough texture, and you can see some of it is about the size of my hand on this large cottonwood, and it makes for some very large trees, of course. This one is probably 60 to 70 feet in height. There are many uses of the cottonwood in bushcraft. One of them, of course, is using the wood for making spindles or hearth boards for friction fire and a bow drill. Another one of the uses is the inner bark can be scraped into a tinder bundle and used for fire making. It can also be, if it's found very fibrous, can also be twisted and used for making cordage. And the dead fallen trees, the bark can be removed in very large chunks and used as a kind of a shingling when you build a debris shelter, and has a good watershed with that. So a number of uses in bushcraft for the cottonwood tree. I really like it. It's kind of one of my favorites. Well, that about wraps it up for the Bush Class USA student practice for tree identification. I'd like to thank Abbo Forrester for the fine tutorial demo that he put together for the lesson. And I'd also like to thank all the instructors at Bush Class USA for the fine work they do at putting these all together. With that, I think we'll take another little bit of a hike out of here, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching my video.